Hello, everybody. All right. Yeah, got on a little earlier than I expected to. Decided to turn it on at the 10-second mark instead of the 5-second mark. Anyways, I hope everybody's doing well. Let's see. I'm going to just take care of this real quick. All right. Anyways, gonna go ahead and take care of some stuff real quick here. I'm going to go off camera, and then when I come back, we'll probably talk more about what's on tap for tonight. So I'll put some music on while we wait for more people to show up, and I'll be with that. All right. Anyways, all right. All right, so here's what's on tap for tonight. We're gonna go over 3 articles. One from Bounding in a Comic, 2 from Bleeding Fool. Let's see. One Piece article, an article about superhero comics, and one other one I can't think of off the top of my head, but I'll know it when we get there. So, plus, of course, a wrestling wrap up and this day in each history. So, with that, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Get to the first article here. Okay, so here's the first article. That we'll talk about tonight. Go over. One Piece English voice actor Michelle Rojas called out by fans after attempting to push debunked transgender Yamato theory. Now, little background here: Michelle Rojas, of course, is a Dallas-based VA who worked for Funimation, which now, of course, Crunchyroll. And there had been a theory going around out there that Yamato, a character on One Piece, was supposedly transgender, and they point to certain. Now I know Hirohei has covered this a bit, and a lot of this started really erupting recently in a pictorial of all the basically One Piece female characters. So, anyways, so the article is by Nerdigans Inc. July 7th, which was last Friday. So let's take a look at this. Just when fans thought One Piece creator Eiichiro Oda's recent manga color spread featuring women from the franchise would put a definitive end to the discourse over Yamato's gender identity, the Oni princess, newly cast Oni meaning demon, and the newly cast English voice actor has reignited the conflict. According to Western Twitter activists, because Yamato is a tomboy who uses male pronouns, or a bokuko in Japanese, the Oni princess must be a transgender man. Mm-hmm. However, the read of her character ignores the fact. This read of her character ignores the fact that her use of male pronouns is based in both her being forcefully raised as a boy by her abusive father, Emperor Kaido of the Beast, to fulfill his desire for his son, as well as her wish to follow in the footsteps of her hero, Kozuki Oden. So this isn't that she's so basically they're saying there she's not identifying as a woman because she thinks she's a woman, or rather, she's not identifying herself as a man because she thinks she's a man. She's doing it for other people's sake. She's doing it because her father kind of forced her to do it. First off, and it's kind of funny because there was a Pew Research report that came out that most SJWs do have some form of mental illness. So, but also because you want to follow in the footsteps of her hero, Kozuki Oden, which I'm going to assume is a guy based on the read here. Of course, all dissenters to this transgender Yamato headcanon are automatically labeled as transphobic bigots. Well, okay, I go back to this, and I've said this before. Oda himself, who created the character, okay, put Yamato in in um in a spread featuring female characters from the series. Okay? Which should tell you that he thinks of Yamato as a woman. Okay? What, you're going to say that because he created the character, he doesn't have a right to determine what gender they are? Really, people? He created the character, and if he put Yamato in the female spread, then I think it's pretty apparent that he thinks of her, or he thinks of Yamato as female. Therefore, Yamato is female. If her creator, created her to be a female, then she is female. Period. Let's see. Moving on here. As noted above, after months of debate among fans, the matter of whether Yamato identifies as a man or a woman was eventually put to rest by series mangaka Eiichiro Oda himself twice. The first time in the form of Yamato's Vivre card, an official profile written with approval from Oda, wherein the heroine was specifically labeled as a woman. Now, granted, this is the individual, this is the man who created the character. And if the man who created the character says that she's a female, she's a female. I mean, she looks like a female to me. She's got breasts and everything. Her features look pretty feminine to me. I would think she'd be female too. The next instance came roughly 2 years later in 2023 when he included the young warrior in a cover illustration specifically highlighting the series' female characters. And this is when the controversy reignited. And this was from a couple months back. I know. Again, it was brought to my attention by Hirohei. He was one of the first ones to cover it. So, yet despite these confirmations from the character's creator himself, it seems the Western voice acting industry is refusing to accept the reality of the Yamato situation. Excuse me, I forgot again to put the do not. I'll be right back. Hey Woody, I'll be right back. I gotta go turn the do not disturb sign on my phone again. I forgot. Those are moobs. Be right back. All right, so I'm back. All right, so let's see. And of course, if you guys can like and share the stream, See if we can get some more friendly people here. Also, if if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, anyways. Dropping numerous announcements during their annual industry panel at this year's Anime Expo, Crunchyroll revealed that not only would the One Piece anime's Wano country arc soon be receiving an English dub, but that the voice of the Okuchi no Manakini Devil Fruit would be provided by non-binary voice actor Michelle Rojas. Again, trying to push the alphabet agenda here. Later taking to Twitter to announce her casting, Rojas reignited the Yamato gender discourse by referring to the character as a transgender man. Quote, I am Kosuke Odin, declared the actor, who goes by she, they pronouns. Quote, honored to announce I play Yamato in One Piece. I am a huge One Piece fan and resonate with this character so much. So excited for everyone to meet him in the dub. Unquote. For activists, the non-binary voice actor's overriding of Oda's established canon was viewed as a victory against transphobic fans. Okay, but you're basically subverting the creator's original intent there. Quote, when even the dub VA of Yamato uses the right pronouns, unquote, Lunan Inc. proclaimed, you transphobes have no excuse. Well, okay, no, it's not the right pronouns because the creator himself, she's using the wrong pronouns. The creator himself has said that, Yamato is a woman. Okay, so that supersedes everything. Quote, this is literally the meme of, in smaller quote, X anime character looks into the camera and calls themselves a he, and transphobes will still deny it, unquote, at Vin Rising claimed. Quote, these comments, unquote, noted Mwashage, noted Mashwage would discuss, quote, like, how are you a One Piece fan but transphobic? Y'all are just mad that you're attracted to a trans man. Y'all are losing your GD mind over the fact that if you accept that he's trans, that means you're gay. Like you can be attracted to femme presenting trans without being again, no, they are not trans. They're not gay. The original creator, even said you're the one acting like a Accusing fans of being both illiterate and transphobic, at Tulavin bleated, quote, in another installment of One Piece's Fans Can't Read, bigots are debating the voice actor of Yamato, and Yamato doesn't use he, him pronouns. Like, y'all can't actually be reading the same manga as the rest of us. As explained, though, he was forced to by his father, for one. and two, um, and two, he was doing it in honor of his hero, or she was doing it in honor of her hero. The fact is that the creator himself, the one who created the character, identified her as um, quote in in before quote in before Yamato just wants to be Odin so much they're willing to change their gender. The further dismissed in before in smaller quotes, Yamato just wants to be Odin so much they're willing to change their gender. In smaller quote, unsmaller quote. The further dismissed Oda's own words. Quote, that is the most trans thing I have ever read. It's almost like people have role models and experiences that help them realize their transness. Tell me you don't know trans people without telling me. Others, like Soul Boys, Soul Boys, attempted to fall back on the idea that gender and pronouns are two different things to keep pushing their debunked Yamato theories. Quote, I love how the simple, correct usage him is enough to trigger transphobic One Piece fans. At Soul Boys sneered, quote, like, sorry, bleepers, not only are you betraying the values of your favorite, no, they're not, because the creator himself identified Yamato, the person who actually created the character, um, identified her as female. You're also dumb as hell for not knowing pronouns do not equal gender, so Yamato being a woman wouldn't stop us. However, refusing to entertain any attempt to make this narrative take root, One Piece fans at large responded to Rojas and her supporters' mental gymnastics by simply pointing back to Oda's own words. Quote, it's a she, at Beltran had declared. Quote, this is just getting ridiculous and very desperate coming from the ignorant buffoon taking characters that are not the things they want to for their purpose of in smaller quotes representation. In brackets, Yamato is a she, they added. Oda clearly stated that. Mm-hmm. So if the creator of the property says that a character is one thing, in Yamato's case, she is female, at Ray's Silva proclaimed, quote, stop trying to change properties that's not yours for some, in smaller quotes, ally points. It just makes you look like pieces of manure. Attempting to explain just how disrespectful they were being towards a creator they supposedly supported, at Hydroponics told activists, quote, imagine you are the creator of something, you literally founded it. Then an outside group says, we are going to change things, unquote. Quote, And even after you, the creator, comes out and say, no, you're wrong about that, unquote, they continued, quote, they still insist on being correct. Narcissistic psychopaths, all of them, unquote. At 10, um, 10 MG gets Mikestand Anthony corrected her, in smaller quotes. Oda has made it very clear on multiple occasions that people clearly ignored so that they could keep their headcanons. I would suggest actually researching your character before playing the part. In my LMAO, um, you are very underqualified for the job. Oh, okay, I get it now. Oh my God, it's Anthony 1. Okay. Oh, there are actually important and well written trans characters in One Piece. Oda himself explicitly goes out of his way to confirm them too. Unquote. At Slim Daddy called out the activist superficial outrage. Quote, but because Yamato is popular, they ignore all context and Kanan information that makes it clear she simply isn't one of them. Unquote. Quote, this just goes to show that even a creator's word doesn't mean anything to these people, acknowledged at Little Lefty. Um, quote, yet strangely, it's the end of the conversation when it comes to Bridget, despite the creator contradicting himself a lot, unquote. They then noted drawing a comparison to Guilty Gear creator Daisuke Ishiwatari's sexuality swapping of the aforementioned character. Quote, the entire ideology is incoherent and has colonization in its DNA. As of writing, neither Rojas, Oda, Toei, Crunchyroll, nor Shueisha have offered a public comment on this reignited discourse. And I doubt very seriously if they actually would, because it is it's very stupid. Okay, the fact is that who created Yamato, Oda, who created Yamato, identifies her as a woman. That should be the end of it. But for Looney Tunes like Michelle Rojas, it's not. You know. Anyways, now getting ready to move on to the next story here. Got a couple that we'll be reading from. Yeah, Humble Bundle. That was the other one. That the one of that's the second one here. We're going to read here. Humble Bundle celebrates 50 years of Red Sonja. Article by John uh, Pallister, published back on July 9th, which was yesterday. All right, so here we go. This year, it's the huge 50th anniversary celebration of the she-devil with a sword, Red Sonja. Dynamite is celebrating with a brand new series by acclaimed writer Torun Grönbeck and franchise legendary artist Walter Giovanni. In addition to the flagship new title, key reprints, collectibles, and more, Dynamite has teamed up with Humble Bundle for an overflowing ultimate celebration of the character's history via a big bundle of digital comic books. The bundle is live right now, and it's only for a limited time, so jump in. 32 minutes. All right. The innovative tier-based model of Humble Bundle gives fans a chance to choose between three options for the digital hulls. For just a single dollar, readers can walk away with two incredible special Red Sonja tales. One More Day and Red Sonja and Cub feature gorgeous art by Liam Sharp, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, and a manga-inspired saga by sword and sorcery great Jim Zub, respectively. The final tier includes a grand total of nearly 250 issues and over 7,000 pages. This incredible bundle is bursting at its proverbial digital seams and would normally cost nearly $760, but is available at nearly 98% off. So it's almost free. Though every project, big and small, is worth reading, big standouts in the bundle include the entire original Red Sonja series, Dynamite published from 2005 through 2013. Then industry juggernaut Gail Simone took the character for a critically acclaimed tenure, fully included here. Another gem is the Europe debuted graphic novel Ballad of the Red Goddess, with gorgeous Esteban Maroto artwork. A diverse range of creators have work featured in this bundle, including but not limited to Gail Simone, Mike Carey, Michael Avon Oming, Nancy Collins, Mark Russell, Walter Giovanni, Amy Chu, Amanda Connor, Jimmy Palmiotti, Liam Sharp, Jim Zeb, Roy Thomas, Luke Lieberman, Jordi Belair, Eric Trotman, Danielle Samper, Joshua Ortega, Mel Ruby, Carlos Gomez, Mirko Kolak, Bob Q, Drew Moss, and many more. Last but certainly not least, a portion of proceeds from um, bundle sales will go to the Hero Initiative, the nonprofit um, charity assists with funds um, and resource for comic book creators um, of the present and past who need help in their lives, financially, medically, etc. All right, so there we go with that one. Let's see. Now we have one more article we'll go through here, and then we'll move on to the wrestling wrap up. Do superhero comics really shape people's body image? Article by Avi Green published earlier today. Let's see. A contributor to Psychology Today talks about how the physiques in comic adventures allegedly shape perceptions of body ideals, which sounds more like a claim that they mislead everybody and aren't meant as fantasy wish fulfillment in any way. And this is, I guess, from the Psychology Today article. Comic books have long been a source of fascination and entertainment, captivating readers with their larger than life characters and extraordinary storylines. However, have you ever stopped to consider the portrayal of these characters' bodies and the impact they may have on our perceptions of beauty and attractiveness? A study recently published in the journal Evolutionary Behavioral Sciences took an intriguing look at the exaggerated physiques of DC and Marvel comic book characters and their potential influence on our own ideals about body image. Body proportions of DC and Marvel comic book characters. Now, mind you, people, remember this is all works of fantasy, works of fiction. So, of course, they're not going to be like as realistic as people may want them to be. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not anything that should, you still aspire to it. In the latest study, Rebecca Birch of the State University of Oswego and David Widman of Pennsylvania's Juniata College expanded on a 2020 study looking at Marvel Comics characters by doing the same with DC comic characters. This included analyzing body mass index (BMI) data for thousands of comic book characters. Perhaps not surprisingly, these characters exhibited distinct differences in body proportions compared to real life bodybuilders. A sample of most searched men and women on popular porn sites, okay, and a nationally representative U.S. sample, the comic book characters displayed exaggerated muscularity with higher BMI values and larger waist to hip proportions. These findings suggest that comic book bodies serve as super normal stimuli, presenting an idealized and hypersexualized version of the human form. Okay, now let me also remind these people too that one, these are works of fiction, and two, there are a number of heroes like Superman, for example, like Clark Kent, like Arcus Chumuk, like Sinestro, who are alien in origin, like the Hawks from Hawk World. They're of alien. So, what you might call an idealized and hypersexualized version of the human form, that may be the normal form on another planet. You dope. Whether this alludes to old or new character designs, they largely obscure how, in the past decade, such designs were badly dumbed down in the mainstream, and this hasn't improved much since. But most intriguing, they should focus foremost upon the Big Two productions, because that's how they got to the deep levels of despair they're at now. Because corporate mainstream makes a far easier target for these propagandists than creator-owned comics. Something's also pretty fishy about the citation of porn sites, because I'd sometimes noticed how these SJW propagandists over past years tried to compare the approach of good girl artists to that of pornography, which is true. Hmm. Comparison to real life bodybuilders. I guess this is all from the article that Avi is referring to here. To further understand the unique characteristics of comic book bodies, the study compared Marvel and DC characters to the physiques of real life bodybuilders. The research revealed that comic book characters had significantly higher BMI values and waist to hip ratios compared to bodybuilders. This disparity highlights the extent to which comic book artists amplify certain physical features to create visually striking and attention grabbing characters. The study's findings provide valuable insight into the portrayal of idealized bodies in the realm of comic. Again, these are works of fiction too. Okay, and you're not also taking into account alien physiology, which what you might call a idealized and hypersexualized vision of the human form may be the norm. Maybe the norm for an alien race. Waist to hip ratios and cultural influences. One intriguing aspect of the study was the comparison of waist to hip ratios between comic book characters, the average US woman, and the popular pornography sample. The results indicated that comic book characters had higher waist to hip ratios than both average US women and the pornography sample. This suggests that comic book artists may emphasize exaggerated curves and hourglass figures, potentially influencing societal perceptions of attractiveness. It is important to recognize the role of cultural influences in shaping our ideals of beauty and to critically examine the impact of these representations on body image. Let's see, now this is Avi talking again. But does this still hold true in an era and society where now ugliness, much of it emphasized through transsexual surgery and such, has disturbingly become the norm? They certainly give away where they stand when they speak of critical examination, quote unquote. I guess escapist fare ingredients are thoroughly illegitimate, huh? No doubt, even what Jack Kirby came up with in an example. And then it's going back to the article from Psychology Today. Implication and discussion. The findings of both studies suggest few real differences between Marvel and DC characters, but raise significant implications for our understanding of the portrayal of idealized bodies in popular culture and the use of supernormal stimuli in comic book bodies may contribute to the perpetuation of unrealistic beauty standards and body expectations, um, particularly for young readers who may be more susceptible to these influences. The study also highlights the potential impact of cultural influences on our perceptions of attractiveness and the need for critical examination of these representations. Moreover, the study findings have implications for the representation of gender in comic books. This research revealed that comic book artists tend to exaggerate masculine features such as shoulder to waist ratios and upper body muscularity, as well as feminine features such as waist to hip ratios and breast. This reinforces traditional gender norms and may contribute to the objectification of women's bodies. It is important to recognize the potential impact of these representations on gender roles and promote more diverse and inclusive depictions of bodies in popular culture. See what Avi has to say in response to this. And so we have a huge giveaway as to what this puff piece was really written for. Assailing any kind of positive beauty standards, regardless of whether they're realistic or not. And what's this about youngsters being susceptible to these elements? Again, this sounds awfully hypocritical when there's transsexual surgery being influenced around, transsexual surgery being influenced around the USA. And whatever a fictional fantasy tale is emphasizing pales in comparison with that. What a shameful lot the writer of this petty garbage is being. Does he and the rest of the magazine even care about the objectification of children by LGBT ideologues lately? And there we go again with, quote, diverse and inclusive, unquote, without acknowledging that much of what's seen in that context comes at the expense of any beauty standards they despise. And this is, I guess, in conclusion of the article Avi's referring to. Let me see now. All right. Alrighty then. In conclusion, this is from the article, from the Psychology Today article, both studies shed light on the exaggerated physiques of DC and Marvel comic book characters and their potential impact on our perceptions of beauty and attractiveness by highlighting the use of supernormal stimuli in comic book bodies and the potential perpetuation of unrealistic beauty standards and body expectations. Also, while this research focused exclusively on comic book bodies, many of these same conclusions likely also apply to numerous Marvel and DC superhero movies, which have come out in the past 2 decades. Now, what they fail to understand too, though, is that in both cases, you also have a number of alien races where what you think is an idealized or hypersexualized form may be the norm for that particular race of people. Such research underscores the need for critical examination of critical influences on our ideals of beauty and representation of gender in our popular culture. Further research in this area can help us better understand the impact of these representations on body image and promote more diverse and inclusive depictions of bodies in popular culture. Let's see. So, and then this is Avi's response to all that. If Brie Larson's Captain Marvel movie is any suggestion, the conclusions probably don't apply to the movies. But in any event, this quote unquote study is petty and obscures far more pressing concerns like the aforementioned indoctrination of youths into LGBT ideology. It goes without saying these propagandists also have no ability, despite what they try to make it look like, to distinguish between fiction and reality. while they really fail miserably, where they really fail miserably, is in making an argument why it helps to make clear that what you see in science fantasy is just a lot of wish fulfillment. And the artist writers would surely assume the readers can understand this. Or, or the propagandists make no attempt to encourage educators to point out the boundaries between fiction and reality, why they don't inherently match, and why nobody should expect they'll be able to mimic what you see in a science fiction story. It reminds of a time I was watching a news show years before where a guest was talking about the $6 Million Man and how there were youngsters said to be trying to imitate how Lee Majors would be seen jumping off roofs. Um, how come nobody complains about how any parents of such children never taught them, no matter their age, why they can't imitate that kind of stuff in real life? And that's it, and that it's dangerous to do so. As a result, what's that about better understanding again? Mm-hmm. Alrighty then. So there we go with that. That's the last of the stories we're going to cover tonight. So some quick little notes on the wrestling wrap up, of course. So in WWE news, they are first off they're looking to, of course, they're looking to get um, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn a match at WrestleMania, since they didn't wrestle at Money in the Bank. In a recent interview, Natalia um, came out and admitted, that if she had the opportunity to have an intergender match with somebody, she'd want to have it with Dolph Ziggler. Now, on tonight's Monday Night Raw, as WWE continues to make their way towards make their way towards and make their way towards SummerSlam next month. As we're now inside, they've just said we're inside of a month from SummerSlam. So tonight's Raw, as soon as I find it. All right, so coming from Key Bank Center in Buffalo, New York, thus far scheduled a no disqualification match between The Miz and Tommaso Ciampa. Becky Lynch will be taking on Zoe Stark one-on-one with Drew McIntyre, and Matt Riddle will be taking on Giovanni Vinci and Ludwig Kaiser of Imperium. So those are the matches, and we'll have we'll obviously have the results of that for tomorrow. Meanwhile, in AEW news, over the weekend, AEW of course had Rampage and and Collision. On the Collision show, of course, CM Punk and CM Punk and CM Punk and Samoa Joe, or I'm sorry, CM Punk and Absolute Ricky Starks advanced to the finals of the men's bracket of the AEW of the Owen Hart tournament. Hey, Metal. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah. So, anyways, and let's see. And thank you, of course, for the like and the share. Yeah, I kind of wish you came out earlier. I was talking a little bit of. Don't know if you'd heard much about the whole Yamato controversy on One Piece. There's a whole huge debate going on, even though Oda has said twice now, it's confirmed twice that Yamato is female, but you still have a lot of people, including her recently cast English voice actress, Michelle Rojas, still pushing the idea that Yamato is a trans man. So, don't know if you heard too much about that, but anyways, back to the wrestling wrap up here. So CM Punk and Absolute Ricky. Let's see. I'm outside grilling a steak. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, so yeah. So yeah. But CM Punk and Ricky Starks advanced to the finals, which will be happening on this actually next Saturday's Collision, and then this week on Dynamite and Impact, of course, on Dynamite, the first of the semifinal matches for the women's in the women's bracket of the Owen Hart tournament. Ruby Soho, who defeated Britt Baker last week, will be taking on Sky Blue. And then on this Friday's episode of Rampage, this match was originally scheduled to happen on last Saturday's Collision, but due to the fact that Willow Nightingale was not cleared to wrestle due to the fact she sustained an injury during her Strong Open title defense in New Japan last week, in which she lost the title, but they believe she would be ready by this Friday's Rampage. She'll be taking on Athena. The winners of those two matches will be facing in the women's final on the Collision. And we'll talk more about that, tomorrow, obviously. Meanwhile, Impact, as this coming week, Impact will be having its Slammiversary event this Saturday, past Friday. On this past Thursday's Impact Wrestling. So I get for this past week, saw Eddie Edwards defeat Frankie Kazarian in a one-on-one match. Rick Swan and Sami Callihan defeated Champagne Singh and Shera. Jonathan Gresham defeated Angels in a one-on-one match. In a battle, two guys will be involved in the Ultimate X match at this Saturday's Slammiversary. And we'll go over the card real quick here before we head out. PCO, and in the aftermath of that, of course, Jonathan Gresham and Angels shook hands out of mutual respect for each other, much to Diener's dismay, as it would seem that the design is falling apart. Giselle Shaw defeated Courtney Rush to get back on the winning track after losing to Deonna Purrazzo on the Australian tour. And Leo Rush and Nick Aldis defeated the Motor City Machine Guns, which also led to Leo Rush being signed to face Chris Sabin for the X Division Championship at Slammiversary this weekend. Now, of course, this weekend Slammiversary, as it were, the Countdown show will feature Joe Hendry defending the Impact Media, the Impact Digital Media title against Kenny King. That's on the Countdown show, and then on the main show, we'll see. In the main event, Alex Shelley defends the Impact World title against Nick Aldis. Deonna Purrazzo defends the Impact Women's World Knockouts World title, Trinity. Originally, it was a tag team match between Bully Ray and Macklin, taking on PCO and Scott D'Amore. But after PCO's match, after defeating Good Hands, Scott D'Amore was handcuffed to the ropes by Steve Macklin, so that they could attack PCO. They end up burning PCO, so he's now apparently out of the match. Macklin is supposedly out of the match too. It's Bully Ray teaming with Dina versus Scott D'Amore and a mystery opponent in a four-way match for the Impact World Tag Team titles. The champions Austin and Bay ABC take on Moose and Brian Myers, Sammy Callahan and Rich Swann, and Subculture, Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster. In the Ultimate X match, you have Jonathan Gresham taking on Kushida, taking on Mike Bailey, taking on Angels, taking on Kevin Knight. As mentioned before, Chris Sabin will be defending the X Division title against Leo Rush. The Coven will be defending the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship against Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich. And Tracy Brooks makes her return to Impact in the corner of her husband, Frankie Kazarian, as he takes on Eddie Edwards, who will have his wife, Alicia Edwards, in his corner. So with that now, why don't we go ahead and finish things up by going over this day in each history. History! 53, 73, 53, and 18, and 83. All right, so today being July 10th, 2023, let's take a look back this day in each history. History! So first off, I'm going to head back to 1953, 70 years ago today. As on this date, 70 years ago today, Pacific Northwest promoter Don Owen begins airing his events on television when Heidelberg Wrestling debuted on Portland, Oregon station KPTV. So 70 years ago today, Heidelberg Wrestling, which would eventually become Portland Wrestling, would make its debut on KPTV. I think it might have been one of the first. Well, I think the first in the Northwest area, because I think they were showing wrestling from the Olympic down here in LA, as early as the late 40s. So on this date, 70 years ago today, Pacific Northwest Wrestling would start airing its events on KPTV in Portland, Oregon. With that, moving on to the next piece of niche history. Move ahead to 1973. And on this date in 1973, under their magazine's imprint, Marvel Comics would release the first issue of Crazy Magazine. So on this date, 50 years ago today, first issue of Crazy Magazine from Marvel Comics would go on sale on newsstand. It's from their magazine's imprint. All right, so the next piece of niche history, as it were, happened in 1983. As on this date in 1983, Toei Animation's anime film Pataliro Stardust Keikaku would premiere in Japanese theaters on this date back in 1983. So 40 years ago today, the anime film Patalero Stardust Keikaku would premiere in Japanese theater on this date 80 years ago today. And finally, 5 years ago today, on this date 5 years ago today, passing away at the age of 61 was television producer, animated series television producer Loli Aries, who is the executive producer for Rugrats, Hey Arnold, King of the Hill, Cat Dog, Family Guy, Dora Invaders Him, basically a number of Nickelodeon producer. He also served as an animation producer for film Roman Inc. as well. So on this date, 5 years ago today, at the age of 61, Loli Aries, animation executive producer, passed away at the age of 61. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and of course, Metal, who is in the chat here, he'll be my guest co-host this Friday as we look over Speed Comics Volume 1, Number 4, and Champion Comics Volume 1, Issue 3. We'll be looking at the features of Shock Gibson and so with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope all enjoyed the show, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.